Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for coming along to our panel on revolutionizing trade finance through a blockchain interoperability. We are going to talk about a very exciting collaboration between the Brazilian Central Bank, HKMA, Banco Inter, Chainlink and Microsoft. So it's going to be a very exciting session today. It's for phase 2 of the Drex pilot, which commenced recently and ends in July of 2025, and it's specifically geared around the trade finance and e-bills of lading for agricultural commodities. So I will introduce my two guests. First of all, Bruno Grossi at the end of the stage there, and he's from Banco Inter. I'll get him to introduce himself in a moment. And then we've got João Pereira, who's our head of innovation here on the program from Microsoft. So maybe we could just start with an introduction. So Bruno, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. And thanks for the invitation for the SmartCon. And thanks, Angie, for hosting us. So I'm Bruno Grossi, Head of Emerging Technology and Digital Assets at Banco Inter, or Inter&Co. Inter is a Brazilian digital commercial bank committed with the innovation. At Banco Inter, I'm responsible for innovation projects, mainly in the CBDC, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. Right? As a leader of Drex project on the side of the Banco Inter, I'm leading projects like AMM, Automated Market Maker, for creating a liquidity pool for the tokenized public bonds. We have tokenized credit card receivables and this trade finance use case with the HKMA. I'm very excited to be here today to discuss and give you some insights about this project. Thank you.
Thank you. João.
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon, my friends. And my name is João Aragão. I work in Microsoft, not only in Brazil, in the Latin America. I'm a head of the innovation about the some use case, not only CBDC, but fast payment system and the open finance. And the most part of the time, I'm trying to create the solutions to deliver not only for the commercial banks, but for the central banks, right? And I have been working with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority and together with the other central banks, for example, Norges Bank, the Central Bank of the Mexico, Peru, Colombia, and I'm involved in the 7 projects in the phase 2 of the Drex, not only trade finance, and the receivables and the other projects, for example, tokenization of the debentures, and I'm responsible to lead this project, and not only in the technology part, but in the modeling part, right? How to optimize, how can really the blockchain or DLT can reduce costs of some transaction. And for example, the Interbank will have been working of the 3 use cases with the Inter and the other receivables and the debentures, the green bonds and the other, right? In this way, that's most part of the time that I have been working.
Thank you very much. So listen, we're touching on 3 very big subjects altogether. So this is very exciting because we're combining trade finance, which has been for some time a very compelling use case for blockchain and for tokenization. We're combining that with wholesale CBDC, and just for good measure, we're really focusing on interoperability. So these are all, really important topics in their own right. So question for Bruno, could you just describe a little bit about the collaboration, how it came about, and maybe tell us a little bit more about the Drex project?
Yeah. So first of all, let me introduce Drex. Drex is the CBDC project in Brazil, as we told us. Drex is not only a digital currency, but a platform for wholesale and the retail CBDC, right? It supports a tokenized deposit and the multi-assets inside the platform, right? So the Central Bank of Brazil puts on the table some requirements of a trilemma: the decentralization, programmability, and the privacy, right? Because we already have PIX as our instant payment, fast payment, right? So Drex just finished the first phase. Where we could test. The main use case was the DVP of tokenized public bonds, where we could test complex use case, complex transaction, using programmability and using private solution, some private solution on this platform, right? The second phase is just starting now, and the central bank selected 13 use cases, as João told us, from the participants, right? There is 16 banks and more than 17 participants in this pilot project. Just now, the central bank opens an opportunity for new banks and new companies to work on Drex too, right? So for the first phase, we created a consortium with Microsoft and 7con, that's a Brazilian integrator, to work with the infrastructure of the Drex and test this use case. But for now, for the second phase, we are selected for some other use cases like the trade finance, and we invited Chainlink to. We are including Chainlink in this consortium to help us with the gap of interoperability, right? Chainlink is very important for us because of the interoperability solution, the CCIP, and the Oracle solution to get some off-chain data on site. That is very important for the trade finance solution. Okay.
And I think the payment side of it and the triggering of payments through data on oracles is going to become a really large use case across a number of different sectors over time. So I think it's a fantastic flagship for that particular use case. So Joe, I'm really interested to know from a trade finance perspective, it'd be great for those, particularly for those in the room who maybe don't know so much about trade finance. Can you just describe a little bit about why the use of blockchain has been used in trade finance, why it's considered to be a very suitable form of technology for trade finance, and maybe also why the use of wholesale CBDC is another very important step forward in the journey of improving trade finance on where it is today.
Yeah, okay. What is the trade finance, right? It's a flow of the goods transit, right? It doesn't matter if it's a commodities, agricultural commodities, for example, soybeans or crude meat, right? And we have the flow established. For example, I use the case of the Brazil and the Hong Kong. For example, Brazil is, I believe, that export not only for the Hong Kong but to China, 70% of the soybeans to China and Hong Kong. Why I use this case? Because what is the idea here? Is to create a platform based on blockchain, and I will show to you 3 use cases that you have the 2 that fail, right, and 1 that is a success case, right? That GSBN, right? That's a success case that uses consent and the information. That's a case that's the CCIP or the Chainlink collect information, for example, GPS information from chip, from trucks, from warehouse, silos, and the other, to collect this information, create the proof of existence, right? But we can compare with the other 2 products, for example, TradeLens and the Marco Polo, that find some barriers, right, to adopt, for example, the electronic bill of lading. And I saw in some documents about the explanation about the use case or the failure, right? Is about the e-ball adoption. As a spreadsheet is better, right? In this process to consume and generate this proof of the goods, of the cargo release. That's the topic. In this way, what is the idea of the trade finance in this specific in this project? For example, connecting this partnership between the sandbox of the Drex in Brazil and the sandbox of the Ensemble project in Hong Kong. We have like the two rivers. One river of the blockchain extended to receive the proofs, and another one for the PVP, right? Is based on the conditional payments in each step of the flow, and we have the money, right, locked, like the escrow account to use for this use case, and we will create conditional payments, or for the end user, the producer, or for the bank that assume the risk of the credit. That's the most part of the use case is a supply chain finance. In this way, if you have the sync between the two flows, one for the money, for the exchange, that's a real digital or Drex, and electronic Hong Kong digital, I believe that is a good way to facilitate the process, right? Is a good reason to mitigate the counterparty risks, not only for the banks, but for the central banks and all logistics companies that are involved in this process. In this way, we can talk about a lot of the use case here, but I believe that another problem that we found in the most part of the case is the privacy and the gap and the missing the part of the consent. Because if I create an infrastructure to connect it, create this digital highway between two different countries, we must include one privacy process to protect the information from the different companies, right? And I believe that's the core of this project, right? Because in Brazil, we have the platform that's a Drex that's based on wholesale, retail, and multi-assets. And Hong Kong, I believe that you connect with the sandbox of the wholesale. In this way, we can facilitate this process with the sync, use the CCIP not only for the blockchains, but between the. Because I believe that in Brazil is Bezo and Hong Kong is the same Bezo, but we're creating the connectivity, interoperability between two blockchains, DLT.
And I think there's a really important point that you made about privacy, because if you look at trade finance as a use case, it has by its very nature a very, very diverse community of actors and participants. And so this ability to be able to effectively cross-chain maintain a level of privacy, not just in terms of the transaction, but where applicable in terms of the content of the transaction and the actors and the participants, is something we've been very focused on for a long time. So I'm sure you probably saw some of the announcements that came yesterday. But I think privacy, in a way, solving for privacy will unlock a number of use cases, and trade finance is a really good example of that because of the diversity of the community involved in trade finance. So, and I think, as you say, some of the outtake of the learnings from Marco Polo will also help us to be more effective in the adoption of e-bills of lading as well, because that's very important. So question for you, Bruno. I mean, more generally, in terms of the barriers, the previous barriers to broader trade finance collaboration, how will this project, do you think, in terms of open up cross-border and cross-currency transactions in a way that maybe we have failed to do so in previous projects? What do you think we're able to, in terms of progress, we're able to solve for?
Well, we have a lot of barriers, right, in the trade finance, like the risk of frauds, because we have a lot of documents to manipulate. And we have some, as João told you, if we don't have trust in this trade finance, we have difficult to get credit with a lower interest rate, right? So it creates silos for where only great companies can do the trade finance because they have more money and more access to the money. And you have some geopolitical problems too, right, in this trade finance. The solution will solve some of this problem, not all of them, but with the trust, with the blockchain, we can create more trust and give more money with lower interest rates for everyone, including SMEs, companies in this trade finance ecosystem, right? It's important to create a more inclusive solution for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that the main barrier has been the cost, or has it been mainly things like fraud? And I mean, what are the main challenges that we've seen previously? Is it the pure cost and the fact that it's limited to a very small audience of very, very large producers? Because I know there's a very long tail in trade finance of the smaller and medium-sized enterprises. Is it more about the size of the organization that's asking to be financed, or is it more around the actual logistics of the transaction?
Yeah, we have some reports that mention about that we can increase 40% if you include the SME in this process, right? It's not a joke, but to have for example, the most part of the time we talk about the soybeans, right? But to have a lot of the agricultural commodities that we can export for not only for the Hong Kong, but Caribbean and the other country, right? For example, cassava, we can tokenize this receivable, this production, and use this channel, this digital highway, to offer this exchange, right? That's a process of the inclusion, right? We have a lot of the remote regions in Brazil that we can facilitate in this process, right? That's part of the use case. And the silos that the Bruno comment from me is the real problem. The real problem is I'm not including the blockchain or the CCIP for the interoperability, only to, okay, that's you're my friend, right? Is it to real solve one problem of the interoperability?
So let's sort of fast forward to a world where we're live with our trade finance use case. We've got our 2 central banks synchronized. Our ship is in transit, carrying its cargo of very valuable commodities, and we've got these various trigger payments that are occurring off the back of geospatial information that's being received around the progress of the freight as it goes through its journey. You've built your ecosystem. You've now got your small and medium-sized enterprises on board and all the actors and participants that are involved in that process. That ecosystem is incredibly valuable. So what are the use cases, given that we then have the ability to monitor the life cycle of the cargo as it moves from the producer to the consumer? We're able to trigger the payments and manage the financing workflows. What are the use cases could you see evolving off the back of that ecosystem? Because what you'll have developed at that point will be a very sophisticated life cycle management platform, basically.
Yeah. I would like to introduce some use case here, and we have some opportunities in the international and the local, right? I believe that's the first that we comment a lot here is about the SME inclusion, right? To try increase this flow. About the credit, right? Credit in production, right? Yeah. Barter is another solution that you can include. Why I'm talking about this, my friend? Because when I talk trade finance, it's not the only, right? We have a lot of use cases that we can facilitate and accelerate, for example, in Brazil and in Hong Kong, right? The most part of the time, the monetizing the banks is based on the tons of the commodities that we export for the specific country, right? And we can do in the reverse mode, right? Imagine that I have some producer in Brazil or producer in the Hong Kong, and in Brazil we have, for example, buyers, right? And we can create an ecosystem or facilitate integration with the ecosystem in Brazil. For example, Pix. Pix is a fast payment system in Brazil that you can create a channel with the fast payment system and the CBDC to facilitate the flow of the payment in Brazil, right? To buy or to something in the China on the Hong Kong. It's not only the Brazil exporter, but we can reverse this flow and use the other payment system, use, for example, solution from the Chainlink. And we have a lot of the working capital and the other solution. And I would like to include the other use case that we have been working in Brazil, real estate, right? Real estate, we can create the proof that you have the landing, that you have some apartment or house, and you can tokenize the register of this asset and create a trademark, a marketplace of this token, for example, to extend in another country like the Home Kong, right? And the real estate for me and the receivables of the of the other, not only credit card, but the other. I believe that you can create a marketplace and the trade between these assets, not only commodities, but if you can create this flow about the PVP processes between the Drex, not only wholesale, but wholesale in Brazil, and the interbank will be responsible for the generate or issue the real tokenized, and in the Hong Kong we can use the wholesale. If we establish this digital highway, I believe that we can establish the exchange of any tokenized asset, right?
This is the start of the free internet that BIS is talking about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. The bi-directional element also is incredibly valuable because, as you say, it's not just about commodities being consumed by China that have been produced in Brazil. It goes both ways, and the fact that it's bi-directional is really valuable. But the point you make about it being the beginning of the Finternet is really interesting. Because so it's a very exciting project from the point of view, it is truly cross-border, cross-continent, cross-currency. It's very exciting from that point of view. And on the use case side, you know, as João said, we're talking about agricultural commodities day one, but that could extend out to a very broad spectrum of different asset classes. And one of the things that we've worked really hard on when we were built Interoperability originally on Chainlink was making sure we remained asset class agnostic, because although it might be agricultural commodities today, what's to say you won't move on to, as you say, giving investors in Asia Pacific the ability to invest in agricultural land in Brazil. I mean, that's a really interesting opportunity. And with things like geospatial services becoming so much more sophisticated, people can actually monitor the yields and the actual expectation around the quality of crops and the types of crops, you know, using satellite imagery. So you could quite legitimately own a farm in Brazil and be sitting in APAC somewhere, and you could literally monitor the entire yield of the farm. So I think this whole bi-directional corridor that we're creating using wholesale CBDC and using blockchain and that immutability and the privacy is really powerful. As you say, it's the beginning of the Finternet. It's not that we're just building for one use case, which is really, really exciting. So I wanted to ask Bruno, because obviously you're worrying very much about how this is all going to come together, and you've got quite a big project ahead of you in 9 months to do it in. Well, hopefully just for this particular phase. But how many entities are likely to be involved longer term? So if we look at the production phase of this journey, how many entities do you see being involved in this journey? How much integration have you had to face, or you're facing, with other systems, whether that's new technologies or existing sort of heritage technologies? And particularly, what do you see the Chainlink deployment looking like? Because you're obviously worrying about that as part of the overall architectural design. So I've lumped you with 3 questions, and I apologise. But I'm interested to know what it looks like.
It's a good question, right? It's a very good question, very important. This is a very complex problem, right, to solve, and we are trying to integrate a lot of people, a lot of companies, different companies. For example, in the Brazil side, we are looking for someone that can tokenize the commodities, right, and the monitor tracking this commodity from the farm to the port. And in the international side, we need to work with some companies like insurance companies, ESG, food, logistics. So we need to involve a lot of different companies in this process, right? It's not like Marco Polo that is trying to involve only 2 companies, for example, and it not work. Right? It's a very complex thing to do, and we think that the Federal Reserve Service will be very interested to participate too in Brazil, right, or in Brazil or its company, because to avoid some how do I say frauds and the
from the companies and the producer and the buyer and the
frauds and the
evasion,
tax evasion, right?
Yeah.
The word that I'm looking for.
Is that to connect with the FX compliance, right?
Exactly. And the Chainlink is a key technology here. it will be very important because it will be integrated in a lot of parts of the project, right? We have oracles for a lot of parts of this, and we will have some the liquidity layer, right? That's the Drex and the CBDC interoperability between both of them. But we think that we need some how do I say? Other blockchains, right, working together with the CBDC.
GSPN is based on Hyperledger Fabric, for example.
For example, yeah. So we have choose interconnection not only between Brazil and the electronic Hong Kong dollar, and Drex and Hong Kong dollar, but to integrate with other blockchains that will solve some part of this problem, right?
Yeah. I'd like to introduce another concept or framework that's a regulated liability network, right? Because internet is the future, right? But when I say that we use this framework, we have the layer 1, right? That you have the bezel in the both sides, and the layer 2 that you have the layer of the price. In the same layer, we can connect the CCAP solution, right? And create an interoperability layer in the same privacy layer, right? And the other is to create the business case and the other, right? And add other components here. For example, the decentralized digital identity to the part of the identify, analyze, for example, FBI database, CIA database, CIA database, and the other to identify not only the guy in Brazil, the producer, but the buyer, right? The idea is to create like one zero trust solution and framework that connect the both sides. And I believe that Sergey commented a lot of the confidential computing, the security, and the process of the price. And I believe that is a real needs from the market, right? Not only for trade finance, but any tokenized environment that we can connect. And in this way, I believe that we can use the regulated liability network framework to connect these layers. And each layer will have the concept about zero trust, and we can connect partners like the Brazilian partners for generate the issue, the decentralized digital identity. That's it.
And I think the trust element is going to become increasingly important because in trade finance, the diversity of the audience that are involved in just a single transaction requires us to be able to certainly protect certain elements of the transaction, but also from the digital identity perspective, as you quite rightly say, we need to be able to know who are the actors and the participants that we're actually dealing with. I was party to a transaction a few years ago where we were looking at how we could, it was actually in relation to palm oil, and how we could actually use geospatial 5G data to actually identify the originating source of a particular consignment of palm oil. And I think that the ability to combine technologies, whether that's AI, whether that's geospatial data with blockchain and smart contracts, and allow us to trigger certain events or to attest to certain events using data oracles is becoming increasingly valuable. So you're combining a number of different technologies, which is really exciting. It sounds like an amazing journey, and I think that, as you say, once you've built the ecosystem, once you've started to onboard and you've got a solid industrialized ecosystem in place, then I would imagine the number of use cases you could achieve with the combination of the zero trust and the blockchain and the interoperability would be pretty infinite. So it's a very exciting program of work, and we'll be watching it very closely over the coming months. So thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and good luck with your journey over the coming 9 months. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.